Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Tilted Talk. Unfortunately, this week Trooper's in the middle of moving, the other Trooper, so he's not going to be joining us today, but in his place, we have a very special guest, a friend of mine that I've been looking forward to having onto the show for quite some time now, Jonathan Fatality Wendell. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, can't complain. NHL season kicks off, and I see you're in your Vegas jersey already. So
it's already
you're ready to roll. So no complaints. World's kicked off for League of Legends too. So I'm sports are coming back. Esports are heading into that final stretch. It's all good on my end. Obviously, I want to first start off this by kind of giving you a chance to introduce yourself to some of the people who are, very, very young in the esports scene, maybe just Fortnite fans, and don't really know the insane amount of things that you've already accomplished in the industry. You were the very first esports pro ever, which is quite a statement in the fact that, there's a YouTube video online that shows like earnings in esports over like up to a certain point in time. And for the first 15 years, I think to even past 2010, it's just your name as this big bar graph, and then everybody else is a third of that. And then finally, once League of Legends started gearing up and stuff, people started catching up. But I'm hoping you could talk a little bit about those early days of esports and what you learned and how the thing kind of got built up from there to what we see now with Fortnite World Cup and League of Legends World Championships. And I'd like to get your perspective on kind of how that's evolved and your part in it.
Yeah, I mean, if people know the game Quake, Quake was one of the first kind of competitive player versus player games. I mean, you could say fighting game communities have some kind of a fight in the matter of esports, early days.
Yeah.
But Quake was kind of the one you could win some money at. Obviously, you could win a Ferrari at it. One of my good friends, Dennis Thresh Fong, who won a Ferrari for playing Quake 1. So he was definitely paving the way in a lot of ways really early in the kind of the very elite level of Quake 1 players. Eventually, Quake 3 came out in 1999. I've already been playing Quake 1 for about 3 years, and I was undefeated in all the tournaments I played in. But Quake 3 was a game where it seemed that you had some of the best players from all around the world coming to a physical event. So you had the best Germans, the best Russians, you had the best Swedish players, you had the best Asian gamers, you had the best American gamers, and they all came to these type of tournaments. And that's kind of when I really took off. Basically, I ended up I saved about $500 in my bank account as a kid. My friend from Omaha, Nebraska, he's told me how good I was, and I really didn't even know I was that good. I really just loved playing the games, and it was a hobby. I wasn't making a living at it and so forth, so it wasn't anything to brag about besides bragging to my friends in high school. Eventually I saved up $500, went to my very first pro tournament, won $4,000 that weekend playing a game called Quake 3, and eventually I went home and slapped that check on the table, and I go, Dad, I won $4,000 playing a video game. What's this world coming to? And basically after that, I kept playing the game. 2 weeks after, I got invited to go to Sweden to represent USA and play against the top 12 players in the world. And obviously, I went there and I won 18 games straight, losing 0 against the top 12 guys in the world, and basically became the world champion at the age of 18 years old at the game Quake 3 Arena. After that, I started getting sponsored. I started traveling to all the tournaments around the world. I think I made over $100,000 a year playing in tournaments.
That's insane.
Basically just, kind of launched my career as a professional gamer, and eventually became kind of a household name later on throughout my career.
Yeah. So, I think you touched on a bunch of things there that are pretty actually big deals for especially the new generation of kids that are playing right now and competing in games like Fortnite. So for one, there was no way for you to know just playing online, sitting in your house, how good you actually were. You actually had to go to a tournament and actually save up your money, either save up lunch money or get a part-time job just so you could go. And there was nobody who had done this before you. So you couldn't even show your parents hey, look at this guy so-and-so who, now is $100,000 because he's played video games. That didn't exist. So you really had to I mean, it must have taken an incredible amount of belief in yourself, and then also just like a determination to do this when nobody else had done it. There was no clear path on how to do it. How much did you kind of have to figure things out as you went, and how much did it take you by surprise as it was happening that you were making all this money and that all this stuff was happening to you? Was it kind of surreal?
Yeah, I mean, obviously saving up the money, as a kid, I played sports a lot, and I was always like an athlete. And I felt like I didn't really get to play as much sports as I really wanted to. My body was hungry for competition. And so, as a kid, not to dig in the weeds too much, but I never really felt like I got my full shot at doing something and trying to be the best at it. So I was always kind of like the Renaissance man, like really good at a lot of things, but never the best at one thing. And so gaming and esports and Quake 3 was kind of like my moment. I actually moved out of my parents' house to pursue my career, so I'm not sure if I'm giving the best advice here. But I moved in with my dad, actually, so I wasn't too far offline. But my dad understood my competitive drive. He understood why I had to do it. And obviously saved up the $500, driving down there, basically, kind of, going all in to some extent, and trained for about 3 months, about 10 hours a day. And it was actually an ultimatum to myself. If I didn't win any significant money there, I was going to quit pro gaming quit the whole concept of trying to play video games for a living. I mean, like you said, it really wasn't a thing yet. I think Thresh has some fight in the battle of saying like he's the first pro gamer, obviously, because he won the Ferrari and he got a lot of sponsorships and so forth. But for me, it was more or less, I was making my full living from playing tournaments, like tournament winnings, and obviously I was able to make a living just from tournaments. And then eventually, obviously, I took some of the business side of it to win the sponsorships and kind of live that crazy lifestyle of competing and traveling the world. But yeah, I mean, I remember being in Sweden, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't, there's so many moments where you're just like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
So I remember I was going to school at the time, and I was telling my counselor about me going to play video games, and and he was actually very understanding of the situation, because I actually got about a $30,000 sponsorship to one company. I got another 30 grand from another company, and then I was making over 100 grand my first year as a professional gamer. So I was explaining to the to the college counselor or whatever deal is, like, my situation, and he was like, "Dude, it sounds like you should go do that and come back to school, because we will always be here." So I was explaining all the things I was doing, and he was like in shock, actually. And it's just kind of so crazy. I mean, no one really believed what I was doing back then. I mean, it was just so different.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, because there's still so many people today that if you talk to about esports are completely unaware of it, and still when the Fortnite World Cup happened and Booga won $3 million, like, he was everywhere. And the general population, like, obviously, guys like you and me who live in this sort of stuff, we're like, oh yeah, this is just a natural evolution. But for the majority of the world, they were like, a kid won $3 million playing a video game? What is going on? Like, it didn't make any sense to them still.
I loved it. Watching him win the $3 million, I mean, it brought back a lot of memories for myself when I was that young playing games. So obviously, I was winning $4,000 back when he was 60. When I was that young.
Yeah.
But going throughout my career, I was able to leverage my popularity, and where basically I was featured on MTV True Life. So MTV True Life did a documentary on me, and this is before reality TV was really a thing on television. But they caught my true. It was called "I'm a True Life. I'm a Gamer."
Okay.
And so basically, they followed me around for like 4 months, watching me play games. And if you guys ever want to, just load up on YouTube, "Fatality True Life, I'm a Gamer." You can watch the episode. It's definitely a flashback. But it re-aired for over 13 years. It was like one of the most viewed True Lives ever recorded. And basically just showed me, going through my grind of like training, practicing, and the whole 9 yards. But the coolest thing was I won, on the documentary. So the guys didn't know I'm gonna win. They just followed because like I'm a competitor and like I'm a Quake champion, right? But I'm playing a different game. I'm playing Untitled Tournament, so it's not even my game. But it was showing it showed basically my skill set where I could show people like I can play more than one shooting game. So, and throughout my career, I was a world champion at 5 different FPS games. So that's kind of like my legacy is like no one really ever did that. People always stayed to their one specific discipline. Yeah. And I was able to show people I can switch games and be the best in the world.
So you're kind of like the FPS version of like Sonic Fox, that guy now who plays all the fighting games, and he's like one of the top players. I think you were a better version of him because you actually were winning all these games. I think he's like, considered in the top 5, a bunch of different fighting game titles right now. But there's definitely more variation. At least I might get in trouble for saying this because I'm not a big fighting game guy, but I think there's more variation from one FPS title to another in terms of all the different little mechanics. I mean, I guess fighting games do have a lot of like small nuanced differences as well, but it's definitely a very impressive legacy. And I think it's super important for the people who are fans of Fortnite today and people who like are big esports fans today that are younger to kind of be aware of this in the sense that, like guys like you are what paved the way for how we got to where we are today with all of the games that we play now and all the big competitions and stuff like that. It was really people like you who took a chance back when, like I said, there was nobody doing this. There was no clear career path. Like there was Thresh for sure, but that was kind of when there's only one guy and he's won one tournament and they gave him a Ferrari and he got some sponsorships. And we've even got some footage here of that MTV True Life episode. It was so much younger.
that was the house I grew up as a teenager.
Wow.
I used to play hockey in that cul-de-sac right outside.
That's crazy.
That was me training for Untitled Tournament, 2003.
Okay.
Very long time ago, but there I'm training, playing the game. There's my tiger on top of the monitor.
It's Man, that's
nostalgic looking at the thing. That was my old Ford Focus. I won from playing Alien vs Predator 2. So that was actually the second game I was world champion at. And then I moved on to Untitled Tournament as my third game. But it's pretty cool to win a car playing video games as well. So definitely.
Yeah. I bet. And what's interesting to me is that, despite it being such a long time ago in the, esports and technology world, even though it was, not that long ago, there's still so many similarities in terms of how you seem to have treated your training, your practicing. Like I remember you telling me once that you only ate you ate a very light lunch, or you ate like a turkey sandwich or something like that, and that was it because you didn't want to get heavy. Like you didn't want to feel heavy while you were practicing. You wanted to be sharp and focused.
Food coma. So I was always afraid of food coma. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this documentary was sick. Actually, if you a little bit earlier, you actually got a glimpse at Heaton when he was really young, and also Thorn. Thorn was one actually interviewed me, and everyone knows Thorn as the esports historian.
Yep.
It's so funny. Some of Thorn's first interviews were with me back in the day. Which
big
is like
Thorn fan.
Most celebrated journalist out there right now.
Oh, 100%. That dude is, some people don't like him, but that guy is the man when it comes. I don't care what anybody says. That guy is the man when it comes to esports journalism. He knows his stuff.
Everyone has their edge, so you just have to understand that's his edge and that's his chip on his shoulder and so forth. But yeah, I understand.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really funny actually that we're on this show and talking about Fortnite and so forth. Actually, Fortnite was made by Epic, which was actually the game I won the world championship at for Untitled Tournament. It was made by the same company, Epic. So
I knew
Mark Rain and Cliff Belinsky back then, but Mark Rain is still with Epic. And
wow.
Yeah, it kind of shows you kind of full circle of Epic games. Back then, I was winning the world championship on MTV for True Life for a game Epic made, and now you have a kid winning $3 million, which another game Epic made, Fortnite. So it's really cool kind of to see the full circle.
Yeah, that Unreal Engine that so many games use that engine now to build games even today, right? Like it was so revolutionary. The guys at Epic they've got some video game geniuses over there when it comes to the programming and development of these things, because they've hit so many home runs with their titles that it's kind of unbelievable. So let's move a little bit forward towards Fortnite now, and some of the things that are present today that obviously back then weren't really possible. So for example, when you were competing, streaming, I don't even think streaming would have been possible due to the technological limitations of the PCs that people had.
No, we were
like $100,000.
Yeah, we were just recording demos when we would play, and so I would record demos every time I play, and basically all you get is the gameplay. You don't get voiceover, you don't get commentary, you don't get video. Right. All you get is actual gameplay, like what you see when you live stream. Imagine a live stream with nothing on it, just the game.
Just the game.
And so. So we used to record demos all the time back in the day, and a lot of my videos would obviously go viral because I was doing things people weren't doing. I was very aggressive in Quake 3 in general at the very beginning. So a lot of people would watch my demos and be interviewed about it. It's like, oh, Fatality is freaking crazy. He's like way aggressive and he's doing things you should not do, but he gets away with it, kind of thing. But yeah, we would basically record demos and we would put it on websites and basically try to get popular that way. That was our way of getting popular back in the old days.
Okay, but there was no way for you to monetize that, right? Like you couldn't, there wasn't even YouTube really back then, right?
Monetizing it was basically social cred. So if you want more social cred and you want make people think you're cool, you release demos and people are going to watch your demos. But the way to get the most social cred and popularity was winning the tournaments. Just like today, I mean, popularity is, Booga obviously winning the championship. Look how much press he got for winning, right? And so even back then, that was the exact same thing. You could win online, and it was cool to win things online or tournaments online. But actually, I never played tournaments online hardly ever.
Really?
I specifically only played on LAN. And so there was a lot of strategy behind that, not only because I want to train like I would train for a tournament, like for a big cash payout, because these online tournaments, you never really knew if the guy might be cheating. You never knew what his setup was like. You don't know if there's things going on that are not fair. There's internet lag. The game is actually different. With the 50 ping versus the 0 ping, there's certain fights you can take and there's certain fights you cannot take. And so I preferred to play only on LAN. So when I trained or practiced, I would actually set up my own dedicated server at my home, and I'd have people come over and LAN with me, or I would go to their house and LAN with them in their apartments or whatnot. But I would even have people join my server. So I'm playing on LAN, and they're playing with like a 50 or 60 ping. And it's unfortunate they have to play with that ping, but just, I'm a perfectionist of like, I need to know exactly what I can and cannot do in a tournament. And so that was the idea behind it, but also I did a lot of things to also be mysterious. I didn't want people to know anything about me. So I was very almost anti-social media. I wanted to hide, what it was like to train and so forth. So in this video right here, you can see I'm training with a guy named Tex from San Antonio, and we're training for the championship, which was the True Life Epic Unreal Tournament 2003 championship. So we would train like in this kind of environment. We set up these tables, set up little chairs and couches, and basically we would go at it, hours on end. So I think I was actually down there in San Antonio training for 2 weeks straight. And basically that allowed me to become very talented and good at the game. But also those people that came and trained with me were like kind of sworn to secrecy. So they weren't allowed to share what actually took place. They were not allowed to record demos. So I was very private about how I trained in the games. And it gave me an edge because when I played in tournaments, people were scared to play against me. They knew if I was coming, I'm ready. So a lot of times I had so many people walk up to me after the match and they shake my hand and they're like, oh man, I couldn't, my hand was shaking the whole freaking 15 minutes, so it's kind of cool, but like, it's kind of it's more than just being good at the game. It's about how you adjust your opponent. When I shake your hand and say good luck, it's kind of almost a fear factor to some degree because now you're like, oh fuck, I gotta play this guy. Like that guy's crazy. So that was kind of the mentality I had back in the day, and it was very cool to train with my friends, my very, very close friends, and kind of have like this secret network of people that I trained with where we didn't share any of our any of our stuff. So
Yep.
everyone was super cool about it. I trained all around the world. Traveled to Africa, trained there. Traveled to Sweden, trained there in apartments. Traveled to Germany, trained in a parent's basement of a kid that was playing in a tournament, and no one spoke English besides like the 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I've trained obviously in Texas and all across the U.S. But training was one of the most funnest things ever. It was so much fun to go to someone else's house and train there for 2 weeks. Or I actually trained one time in London, Ontario. But I've trained basically all around the world and training with really top level players privately on land. It makes you a better gamer.
Yeah, there's so much there to unpack. It's not even funny. So like first you have the fact that you actually had to play like strictly on land because you didn't want to play online. So you actually had to find people to come. Like you couldn't just like find the other best player in the world and play online because you guys might have like 160 ping and it's just not representative of an actual game. And I mean, for Fortnite, that's kind of the case. Like certain builds and edits, like you actually have to have really low ping to pull off. But I mean, the levels that you would go to do that, I think is, you know, for any young player aspiring to get better, that's something that they really need to kind of take to heart. Like there's nothing that's too far out of reach in terms of like what you have to do to get to that level. Like you have to be able to go all in and dedicate 100% of your time. And then the other thing is with you traveling all over the place and you meet some of these people, I mean, I would assume some of these people are still very good friends with you to this day. Like you end up, people think that gaming is this antisocial thing, but funnily enough, like when you spend 8 to 12 hours a day like gaming against one person, you almost know how they think in this really strange way, right? Like you actually understand their psychology at a level that a lot of people who just kind of hang out with them for an hour or watch a football game or something, they don't get that same level of connection.
Sure.
Where you literally understand how this other person's mind works. You're like, I know if he gets tilted easily, I know if he's really, really stable, and I know, you know, what bugs him, what doesn't bug him. I know kind of how he prioritizes aggression versus defense, like being safe, or is he like cold and calculated, or will he take that 60-40 play every time? If it's 60 in his chance, will he take the 51-49 play, right?
Yeah.
So you can kind of learn a lot about somebody in this really crazy way through gaming.
So obviously during that time, like you talked about these 51-49 things and 60-40 things, this sun's coming really bright. I'm not sure if I should close the shade or not.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay, so what the deal is that, you know, I knew how players were playing, like offensively, defensively, strategic, and so forth. So I actually flew in guys to train me for the World Championship in New York City, the $1 Million World Tour that I won. So that tournament, I had like an offensive guy come in, I had a defensive guy come in, I had a strategic guy come in. I actually
had an MMA fighter. I
had a badass guy come in who was really talented, and I almost scared to bring him in because he might learn too much from me. But he did assault me for like back in 2000, so I owed him. And so I was like, dude, if you want to come and train with me, 100% you can come and train with me. Like, you know, but he was like a badass. Like, and then the fifth guy was this guy from Finland. It was just a completely crazy guy. It was so bringing in these different type of people to play with was a lot of fun back then.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you almost had like a UFC fighter's mentality where you're like, okay, I need like a boxer who like might emulate this guy's style, or a kickboxer, and like you had all these guys come in so you could like take little pieces of all these games, and then that way it makes a lot of sense. That way when you were in a tournament, you know, maybe within the first frag or two, you could realize this is how this guy plays. I know I played a guy who's really good at that style. I know what this guy's going to do. I know what his limitations are. I know the pathing he's going to take.
Yeah, well, so the funny thing is actually what I found out was, you know, I mean, it's kind of common sense, but like a strategic player dies near the power-ups. Yeah. This is where he dies at. Like, that's just like he can't help himself. He has to get the mega health. He has to get the power-up, right? And so, you know, there's a fight for it, of course. But the thing is, if you know that's going to be his weak spot, you can set up shop before he sets up shop. And then now you have the advantage over him if he does come in. If you get one good shot off, he's screwed, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, it was definitely wild. But then obviously playing against an offensive player can die anywhere. I mean, just that's just in their nature.
Yeah, they're just hunting you, right?
And then and the kind of same thing with the crazy guy. But you know what was really amazing, that the crazy guy would kill me sometimes in the game. And I was like, wow, like that's impressive. Like the guy is playing so bad and so crazy that he killed me. And so So it was like it was amazing. It was an amazing thing to experience though, and I really enjoyed playing him the most almost because I could never predict him. He was completely unpredictable to some degree, but he had many holes in his game. He was like a top 24 player in the world, and that's kind of where he stayed. Just because he's just too like he's either like all or nothing kind of thing. But even his all was never beating me. But you know, it was just it was fun to play against a player like that.
Yeah, that's so. It almost brings in the so bad it's good. Like they're in a position where you're like, why are you there? You should not be there. I mean, you see that happen in CS:GO sometimes. Somebody will hide in a spot where it's the most obvious spot. Nobody even bothers to check it anymore because at the pro level they just think that place is way too exposed. It's way too open. And then, you know, they're sitting there and you don't look there because you don't think he's going to be there and he kills you. Right? So that can always be fun to kind of mess around with a little bit. What advice would you have for some of these like young guys playing Fortnite right now in terms of, you know, obviously your era was a little bit different in terms of what you had to do to kind of compete, but you know, how would you prioritize, you know, for example, practicing and just working on your own mechanical skill versus, you know, becoming really familiar with your opponents and how they play and knowing what their tendencies are? And, you know, how would you prepare for that sort of practice? Like, do you purposely look for players that can compete against you? Like, how much time did you spend training with let's say 3 or 4 guys that you felt at a tournament most worried, like, if I have a bad day, like these guys could actually beat me? Like, did you ever train with them, or was that just like nope, you stay in that way, I'll stay over here, and we'll both kind of beat up on slightly worse people and make sure that the other person doesn't steal any of our like game knowledge?
You need to have camaraderie with people on your level or better, you know. And so I always try to play with guys who are like top 64 in the world. So like 64 is kind of like, I mean, if I had to go to top 120 in the world, I would, you know. But I typically, you know, you find a player that's like, you know, when I was at the end, you know, at the very end, like when I was playing against whoever I could find in Painkiller, I was playing against the top 32 players in the world. So I found a guy I found everything from, I mean, the guys who came to my training and for that training camp where I won the $1 Million World Tour, 3 guys in that facility in my training camp finished in the top 8. I mean, obviously I took first, but like 2 other players took like you know, they took other places that finished very well in the tournament. So it's a testament to like how we train and so forth, and how I can prepare people for success. And so the training that I would advise to people that are, you know, playing Fortnite and so forth. I mean, I've been playing Fortnite, you know, recently. Like I think I put 160 hours in 2 weeks, and that was mainly just because I was just like, I'm trying to get past the learning curve of the mechanics. And obviously, people that have been playing for the last 2 years have all the mechanics in the world for the game, you know. But sometimes, like, I try to crush it in really fast because I'm trying to catch up to, like, you know, ground level to some degree, right? But obviously, I have my natural, like, hand-eye coordination, reflexes, aiming, positioning, shots, all that stuff that happen naturally. So naturally, I'm going to be pretty good at the game. But for people that are trying to get into playing Fortnite or already playing it, definitely try to find the best talent you possibly can find to train with. Also having deep conversations about strategy or whatnot. Talking about the game and not playing the game is very powerful. There's so many times where me and my friends would just sit back and just talk about the game. And then it was so funny, like I found out about a thing I did not know in the game 6 months after the game has already been out. So there's sometimes you miss things in the game that you just didn't even know existed by just talking and brainstorming. So brainstorming about how the fight goes down, what do you think, what bothers you the most, what bothers me the most, and like kind of like figuring it out. And then, you know, you gotta, you know, always training and playing with people in person is way more powerful than doing it online. Even though we have Discord and all these ways to communicate and so forth, which does help a ton, there's still like a connection a little bit lost of just being there physically with the person. So when I trained back in the day, I mean, I always, I mean, 24/7 I'm trying to find people to train with. I would drive to 3 hours away to go to Omaha, Nebraska for the weekend to train, to play with someone that's good, you know. I would throw LAN parties. I actually started a LAN party company throwing LAN parties in Kansas City to train more. You know, I mean, so for me, I was definitely all in all the time, and I was doing whatever I could to be the best gamer in the world. And so it's a thing that you constantly want to try to improve on, and you know, it's a never-ending battle. It never stops. If you stop, someone's going to pass you. So just depends on how much dedication you have to do it. Obviously, you want to play with the best equipment. You want to play with equipment, particularly you want to play with the equipment that the tournament is using. So what I would do in the past is I would find out what the tournament is using. I would find out what monitor they're using. I would find out what computer they're using, what processor. I would find out all these details about the tournament itself. And then I would replicate that at home. So basically, I'm training on the tournament system, but I'm training at home, right? So that's how far I would go.
Did you measure like your keyboard distance from the edge of the table and the height of the desk, like all that stuff? I would measure
the height of the chair at the tournament. Like, you have no idea how crazy I was. Dude, I was a different breed for sure. But I was looking at, you know, I was always trying to think of what could someone else have on me? What advantage could they have on me? And so I'm constantly on the hunt to find out what could someone have a jump on me. So I'm trying to find every percentile of extra data or information, or make things easier for myself to play at the highest degree. You know, I mean, I used to be so, I would never sit in a swivel chair. Like, I'm sitting in a swivel chair right now. I would never, in a tournament, I would never sit in a swivel chair because I thought it would affect my aim, you know? So I had like stupid things like this. I would request, I want a banquet chair. Yo, this chair is much nicer. I'm like, believe me, the banquet chair. So it was very fun back in the day. Obviously, you know, all the things I went throughout my career, but yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it was, I think people kind of like don't realize how much work it was. But, you know, I did it the longest out of anyone, and that's kind of speaks for my record for itself. I mean, for about 11 plus years, I had the highest earnings in esports for a very long time. So.
It's not even like, I encourage anybody who's watching this to go on YouTube, type in like highest earning esports players of all time. There'll be like this video that's like a bar graph. It just like has like a name and like bar graphs that kind of come across the screen, and watch that, and you will see Fatality at the top of that thing for like an insane amount of time. Yeah, over a decade for sure. It's ridiculous, and it's ridiculous. Like I said at the beginning, it wasn't like you're here and the other guy's like, oh, you can't really see my hands, but it's not like they're like this far apart. No, like your graph is like the entire length of the screen.
There's one guy on the chart,
and the other guys are like, you know, all like you could barely see their bar graphs. They're like these little tiny things. So
yeah, and that was kind of by design too. You know, I mean, I wanted to, you know. I had a lot of people saying that, you know, this is a fad, this is not going to last, and so forth all the time. Like when I was playing Quake 3, and oh, you're the best Quake 3 player in the world, but you're not the best gamer in the world. I'm like, okay, now I gotta prove myself. So that's why I started playing ABB2. That's why I started playing Untitled Tournament. That's why I moved on to Painkiller and all these other games. Was to kind of prove, you know, that I am the best gamer in the world. And so, but you know, I had a big chip on my shoulder to prove people wrong. You know, obviously I had my parents on my back a little bit, but that quickly changed when I brought over $100,000 in my first year.
Yeah, it's funny how that'll do that, eh?
Well, you're buying me a Cadillac?
Okay.
I thought I got a Cadillac with my first prize winnings.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a smart bribe, sir. That's a good way to get your dad. Okay, as long as you keep making the money, we'll allow you to do this thing, right? And
well, obviously I moved out, and you know, I was only there for a short time, like maybe a year or 2 years maybe, but eventually I'm trying to think of exactly when I was completely out, but like I was always traveling, so I was never really home in general much. As a professional gamer back in 2000, I was everywhere. I was in Korea. I won the gold medal there at World Cyber Games Challenge. Went to Germany and Cologne. Was in Singapore and Asia. Went to
at that point having like a house of your own or something doesn't even make sense, because you'd be like, why am I paying for this rent? Like, I'm here like 1 week every 3 weeks or something, you know what I mean? Like, you're constantly traveling, like you were saying, to go train into different people's houses. Like, it just wouldn't have made that much sense for you to like spend all this money on like having a home base.
Well, you gotta have a home. You gotta
have a home. You can't live out of your car,
right? So I paid rent to my dad, and to and then Also my parents. So like in that video you saw, I was renting out the basement of my parents' house at that point, and I think it was not much. It was like $300 a month or something. It wasn't much. And then my one of my good friends who I went to high school with, was a really good friend of mine. He invited me to come live at his house near state line, and I'd have a much more relaxed bachelor's lifestyle there. But obviously my focus was playing video games. So I had a 6-man LAN center in my basement. And that's where we trained to win all the championships.
Dude, there's so many parallels to everything you're talking about, and to a lot of the kids today, maybe not so much. But I know, like, when I was competing in Halo, I wasn't as good as you are at Quake, not even close. But I was at a pretty high level. Like, I was on one of the best teams in Canada, and we were probably like top 24 level team, and we did a lot of the same stuff. We trained. We had a couple of teams here in the city that we played with all the time, all weekend, every weekend. We'd go, we'd LAN. We'd put money on the line just to make it feel more like a real tournament. You know what I mean? Like, have a couple $100 or $1,000 that we're playing for with all the teams that were there, and like throw these little mini tournaments. And that was the best practice. And then, like you were saying too, we'd do afterwards. The day would be done, and then instead of going home and going to sleep or something, we'd all go out, we'd get food, and we'd talk about the game and the maps and the strategies for another like 4 hours. And then we'd wake up after like sleeping 3 hours and then do it all over again. Sleep more, kids. That's the lack of sleep part wasn't good. But there's so many parallels there that I think that a lot of the kids today maybe don't necessarily relate to as much because they play online all the time and because everything's done from their own home, which is great. Like, I'm super happy that all these kids can really test themselves from home, and they don't need to maybe make the investments we needed to make and fight the battles we needed to fight with our parents to like allow us to go to these places and do these things.
But Fortnite does a very good job of making it accessible from home. You can play in the cups they have like every week, right? And you can play online against the best players right there. And yes, you are limited to what you have at home. Do you have a good computer? Do you have good internet? Do you have the right tools to succeed the best at home, right?
Yep.
And yes. Some of them don't. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't as well. So, definitely it's a different time. But the thing is, I think I'm not sure how good the anti-cheating software is in general on Fortnite. I'm not sure if there's a lot of cheating in the game or not. And that's why, like, when I do it, like we always said in the old days, we always say do it on LAN. Because on LAN, you would know if the guy's legit or not legit. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. LAN was always what mattered the most, right? Because that's where everybody was on the same situation. But just to go back to what you were saying with the setups, like, and this is where I think, some of the kids today can learn a little bit about the work ethic and the dedication and the passion that some of the older guard from esports had was, maybe you didn't have a nice new monitor. I knew lots of people who literally picked up a part-time job specifically for the ability to buy that monitor. Right, or to buy the new console or buy that new PC upgrade or whatever it was. And, obviously that takes you away from the game, but if it's going to make your setup better, if it's going to make your gaming more efficient, it's so worth it.
It's necessary.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not even close to being not necessary. It's 100% necessary.
Yeah, it's not optional.
If you don't know what your potential is because you're playing on limited hardware or limited equipment, you don't know if that shot's even possible or not possible. Maybe that shot is possible with that setup, but with this setup, it's definitely like impossible or more unlikely. If you're not practicing and training on this optimal setup, you don't know your full potential. And I've played many tournaments where I go to the tournament and the tournament machine's less than my computer, But the thing was, somewhere in my aiming, I still knew to move the mouse a little more right or a little more left, even though I couldn't see it on the screen. I knew that I had to like make the adjustment or wherever it was. Right. So it was kind of funny because now I've kind of like done this. I've kind of tricked my mind to know what that crappy computer can do, but I know how it works at home. But like it's a complicated situation. But I would find myself sometimes where I was definitely doing some shots for more damage. Not more, just like more than you would be able to if you're on a crappier system. Right, because the less frames you see, the less accuracy you're going to have. The less hertz of the monitor you have, the less smooth the characters are moving across the screen. So all these things are a big factor.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Damn, we've been going for 45 minutes already, and I know you had to get to a hockey game. Start. I know, right? It's crazy. We're gonna definitely. I'm telling you now, we're gonna have you come back on at some point because
for sure.
This has been a lot of fun. But let's get into. I think there's really no patch notes to talk about anyway. So I mean, we'll skip over that. I do want to get your input on some of the stuff that's going on in the community right now. So, I'm constantly on the Fortnite subreddit. And one thing that I've noticed, and that a user actually made a post about, I think today, maybe it was today or yesterday, but that I've noticed a lot, is just the incessant kind of complaining from the community regarding everything. Yeah. Everything. So this subreddit, which is supposed to be dedicated to, competitive Fortnite, so be that clips from tournaments, strategies, building, like how to do certain things, right, that really would like foster a competitive community. Instead, it seems to have just turned into a constant like, oh, this is too dumb or this is broken. Did you have any experience with that back in your day with any of the games? And if so, like what advice would you give to all these players who are focusing on all this stuff? Because for me, I kind of just feel like, this might be the reality, but you got to deal with the game that you have, and just crying about it isn't going to make it go away or make it better.
So the thing is, like, the dynamic of the game changes. Right. And Epic did this to me in Untitled Tournament 2003 when they switched to Untitled Tournament 2004. The flak cannon was like a shotgun grenade launcher.
What?
And remember flak cannon? The flak cannon?
No, I never played that game, man.
Okay, so they had a flak cannon, kind of like a shotgun, but the bullets would take time to travel there. And then they had it was kind of a grenade launcher attached to it. And so you have this like kind of dual weapon purpose weapon, right? Well, the flak cannon would shoot really fast, and it was really good close combat and so forth. Well, in Untitled Tournament 2004, the next version of Untitled Tournament, they made the flak cannon, the reload time crazy long. So now if I get close to a guy, I can only shoot like one of them, and then basically I'm stuck using an inferior weapon now. It's like to the max. So I remember when that happened, I was extremely frustrated too. There's countless times in esports and competitive gaming that I've been upset about game developers changing the game, making these changes and so forth. And it's kind of like rolling with the punches. It just it's a thing that sucks. But you have to learn how to adjust to it. You have to learn what is the most optimal way to play the game now. Yeah. Because when the game changes, you don't have control over it. I remember winning the Untitled Tournament, the Alien vs Predator 2 tournament. Before the tournament, the day before the tournament, the patch was changed. It changed all of the homing missiles for the gun that basically it made it like 99.9% accurate. And I found the way to get the 0.1. But when I walked in that tournament, I knew I was gonna win it hands down. Like it was like no one's giving me, and I knew I was gonna wipe the floor. But they changed the patch. Now all of a sudden, everyone caught up to my level because I believe I was the only guy who properly knew how to dodge in the game, and it was my own little secret. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't share it with anyone. And also, when I trained with the guys online, I purposely would not do the move that often because I didn't want them to catch on to the move.
Yeah.
So there's certain things like there where like if you have information, this is great advice for you guys out there, but like if you know something, don't share it. Like there is like you put all that work in, all that time in to learn the game and learn things before other people learned it. That's an advantage that you got because you put the work in. And so if you're gonna share it, you gotta share it with someone really close that you also have a trust and relationship with that you can share together.
Yeah, so you got to share it at a tournament, right? And not like share it. You just pull it out at a tournament, and then everybody's going to go, what was that? Like,
they might not even notice it. I had in Quake 3, there was a trick where you could jump from the top of the jump pad and land right in front of the jump pad, and it took 0 damage and no sound. And so in the tournament, it was so awesome. The guy kind of had the position on me. He had the armor on me. He had control over me. But I remember I fell down and I went and I basically ran underneath them. Actually walked underneath them. Totally silent. He still thinks he has a shot on me, because basically when you go up there, you have to jump and you have to expose yourself for one shot, right? Yeah. But I'm literally walking underneath them, and then obviously I could keep walking at wherever the deal is to get to the red armor and like get the power up, wherever. And I remember I purposely started jumping and making noises because I knew it would piss him off.
You'd just be so confused. Like, how did he get away from?
Yeah, and also the guy's in frustration because he has control, and when someone has control and you're about to take it away, like steal it from them, it digs into a guy's skin so
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
So
Oh, for sure.
I purposely started jumping because I knew it would freaking lit him up. I was this guy's gonna be so bad. So I run up there and he's trying to run. I'm gonna get it because I'm ahead of him. I get the armor. He's running toward it. I kill him, and then obviously I go on to win the match with ease. But it was definitely a funny moment where it's kind of a mind game to some extent. You have to play with people a little bit and get inside their head, and a lot of that's the psychological side of esports and gaming, is that how can you play with someone's mind a little bit and get them outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. Adapting, playing the psychological aspect. Like there's a lot of psychology to esports that people don't take into account, right? And I think just the one thing I want to add on to what we were quickly discussing earlier about, changes to the game and stuff like that. Obviously they're very frequent right now, and if you have an issue with them, like, you got to be constructive, because like I think a lot of these players forget that the game developers are actually human beings. Like, it's like some person just like you. Maybe they're older than you. If you're like a teenager or something, they're probably older than you, but they're a human. So if you go, oh, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing, this game sucks now. Like, what are the chances that if somebody approached you like that and then told you to do something, that you're gonna do it? If you're a teenager, I guarantee you that's a 0% chance. Like 0%.
And sometimes I see influencers kind of like hype it up a little bit too, but sometimes I feel like they're just doing it for clickbait, just to
for sure.
Just to like kind of create drama.
Yeah.
I mean, it does suck when they change the games and so forth. And it would be nice if there's more constructive way to like gather the information and then let it out. But I mean, the game developers are developing their game how they want to develop their game.
Right.
It's not your game; it's their game. And so if they choose to change some things and so forth, and they do, it does seem that the game developers are listening to the audience, because they've been making games easier every freaking year for like the last 15 years.
Yeah, and
I
that's
can tell you what games were like back in, like, if you ever played a game called Painkiller, that game was the most ruthless, deadliest game in the world. No one, if you sucked, you sucked. And there was no way around it. And
Fortnite kind of has flashes of that.
People whine about dying fast and all this stuff, spawn killing and everything else. And the progression of the games over the last 14 years is they've slowed the games down. I mean, even Quake Champions, the game that, the Quake franchise, was an extremely fast game. It was really deadly. And Quake 1, Quake 2 was pretty deadly. Quake 3 was extremely deadly because they had like random spawns. Like when you kill someone, they would just randomly spawn in front of you. But they changed their game to make it more friendly for noobs, And so, but Painkiller was definitely one of those games that were like, it was like do or die kind of game. And ever since then, it's like, everyone's trying to build like a 50-50 experience. I mean, obviously you see like, League of Legends or Dota and so forth, every game, if you solo queue in, they try to even the teams out to be a 50-50 experience, because they want everyone to win or lose. Same with like Overwatch. These type of games are to cater to the masses.
So you think esports are too easy today? Is that what I'm getting out of this?
I think the games are more based around team play and team skill rather than individual. Right.
I mean, I think to an extent, I like the teamwork ability. Like, I'm a huge League of Legends fan. I played Halo. That was my competitive game, and that was a game where, I'll straight up admit I was never the most individually talented guy, but I had a really good sense of how teams moved around the map and where to be at the right time and control the map and kind of put the shots down.
I love team play. I mean, I won one of my world championships are in team play, 4v4 deathmatch and team deathmatch and Quake 3 Arena, and I love working on a team. But even in that game, Quake 3 Arena, in team deathmatch, there was still a lot of skill being displayed. But there was a lot of teamwork being displayed at the same time. So for me, it's like when I see some of the games today, like I feel like their emphasis is so much on teamwork, where the individual player really can't like overpower like one team.
Which definitely, I think that is the balance, because you see that like even League of Legends has moved. Like when I was playing League a lot and really taking the game seriously, one person, like if you were the best player in the game, you could win that game. Now, if you might be the best player in the game, but if you have the worst player in the game on your team, you're pretty screwed. Like it's really, really hard to overcome that, because he can just make the other guy so much stronger. Yeah. I think Fortnite, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this as kind of like a final thing. I think Fortnite does a pretty good job of kind of balancing this. in the duos and in the squads variants. I know they don't really run squads competitively; it's more trios. But like Fortnite is one of those games that, at the beginning it was kind of I don't want to say a joke, but like if you look at early clips, like when people were building one ramp or like one wall and that was it. And, people didn't know how to build, right? It was kind of gimmicky, but now you see how much mechanical skill goes into building. And I know you play the game quite a bit. We actually featured one of your clips here on Clip of the Week one week. Do you think Fortnite does a better job right now than most games at kind of balancing that individual skill versus team play sort of aspect?
Well, there is a ton amount of skill in the building mechanics of Fortnite. It's such a new thing in general. So the people that are the best at it right now are the best at it. And that makes a big difference on who wins the fight and who loses the fight. Obviously, a ton of teamwork. I've watched, I think I watched Tfue, I watched Booga. I watched a lot of those guys play their trio scrimmages and so forth and watch how they play. It's very like passive, kind of almost like PUBG style, very passive at the beginning, and then obviously just try and survive and make it to the final circle, and then the circle starts moving, but yeah, I mean, they're keeping track of how much materials they have and so forth, and then they're just trying to best position themselves the best they can. I really liked watching Tfue play a little bit. I liked because he used the Booga Bomb or wherever the bomb's called.
Yeah.
And so I like some of the moves that they were making. I make those all the time, but it was just I like it just because it feels like a rocket launcher jump, like a rocket jump in Quake. So I love using the boogie bombs. I think they're fun. Is it the boogie bomb or what?
It's the boogie bomb, the one that makes you dance, right? That's
no, the one that makes you fly.
Oh, that's the impulse nade, I think.
Yeah, the impulse nade.
Okay, yeah, those are great. Those are fantastic.
I love the adrenaline rush because that's more my speed. Like that's like moving fast and everything like that. That's like more like my my
Quake was so fast.
Yeah, so that's what Painkiller was like all the time. So always that adrenaline rush and just moving fast and but anyways, I did enjoy watching some of those guys play and watching the strategy go down. But it's just a lot of teamwork and the building mechanics. I don't know I haven't been playing the game for the last 2 years straight, so I can't really attest to how easy or how hard it is to build they build. I know it took me about 160 hours to get my skill up to somewhere close, not even close. I mean, I would still say I'm really far from where they are. But there's definitely a skill. There's definitely a skill in building, and it's a unique thing that I have enjoyed watching and playing myself. Because for me, I'm always trying to learn different techniques in different FPS games, and I felt like this was the first time a game gave me a challenge again, where it was something different than the norm I've been doing for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, it's definitely a completely unique mechanic, and I think that's what makes it so fun for a lot of people, and also so frustrating for a lot of the other people that aren't good at it, right? Because it's this is such a weird thing to just Fortnite, but that's what Fortnite has become. If you're not good at that mechanical skill, you're not able to compete, right? So you kind of have to get those baselines down. I think we had a question from chat that was actually pretty interesting. So basically what they're trying to figure out is, do you think that, because they agree with you essentially that the game has moved more towards, games in general and moved more towards team focused and individual focus. Do you think we're ever going to see a return to that really high skill ceiling and that individual focus? Because at least from what I've been able to tell in, my much shorter time in the industry, is that I think there's a sweet spot for games where it has to be it has to be accessible enough that a player can pick up the game and do something and at least feel like they're playing relatively quickly. But then the difference between that player and somebody who's been playing for a month should be astronomical. And the player, it should be kind of this stepping ladder where every tier is so much better and there should be a big skill gap. What's your thought on that? Are we going to see a return to really, really big skill gaps? And what's your kind of ideal game design philosophy?
I feel that it would be a natural evolution that everyone would want it to be faster because people would want more skill to be shown, more things, more crazy things to happen, right? And so, I always have a big belief that it can come back. I think Quake in general, as a franchise, I would like to see them kind of lead the front to some degree. The game right now they have, I'm not a massive fan of, but it's when you have just talking about 1v1 deathmatch and so forth, and these games in general, like almost go to any FPS game. Okay, if there's a railgun or an instant hit weapon in the game that's very powerful, it makes the game very defensive. Definitely. So when you have these long-range weapons that are overpowered or very powerful and cause people, really good players, to stop, that's what caters to camping. And that's what caters to defensive gameplay. That's what caters to all the things that we typically as spectators don't like. And, I'm not a big fan of the railgun. Obviously, I'm really good with the railgun, but it's beside the point. The point is that I want to see more action. I want to see more people pressing forward, not backwards. Yeah. So I want to see crazy acrobatic fights, and that's what Painkiller was. And if you guys ever get a chance, there's a video online. It's Fatality versus Vu CPL World Tour Finals. It's a pretty long video, but it shows you kind of like the whole game. It shows you 4 matches, and it was obviously the $1 Million World Tour. But that'll show you some really high-level gameplay and shows you how fast it is. And there's commentators, the whole 9 yards. You can kind of like dive into like what it was like in 2005 at the biggest esports tournament in the world back then.
It's for a lot of the young guys watching out there right now, it's going to be a bit of a shock because of just how big of a difference that was, right? I mean, it's a whole different world. But I know you've got a Vegas game to get to. I'm kind of jealous. I'm missing the Leafs game right now, which has me a little bit sad. Last I checked, we got scored on like 15 seconds.
I'll try to give you a little sneak peek. So I'm here in Vegas. I'll actually show you. Let's see if I can turn this blurriness off or not. But let's see. I don't even know how to do this yet.
Yeah, but here I can see it kind of. The strip's right there, right? That's crazy. You're breaking up a little bit now. Oh, we lost your video there. It's
No, I'm still here.
Okay. You're still here? All right.
You got me?
Yeah, we lost the video feed. Oh, I think it's back now. I think it's back.
You got me still?
Yeah, we do.
So here's the Vegas Strip. So actually, right over here is where the Golden Knights are playing at. Let me see if I can show it to you.
So you just got to cross the street. You're lucky. Lucky man.
Trying to get it. 1 second.
I can see it there. It's that white building, right? Yeah, there you go.
Right there. Yeah, right there.
Oh man, lucky guy.
Yeah, so I was pretty excited about going to the game, of course.
Yeah, I bet. But yeah, as we wrap this up, I just want to know, here's your opportunity to kind of tell the Fortnite fans that are watching what you got going on. I'm assuming you might bring this up.
Yeah, Ready Up. Yeah, so what we're doing at Ready Up, I'm obviously a co-founder of the company. It's been kind of my lifelong dream to try to help grow esports. It's I feel like for people that want to get into esports, it's been kind of hard. There's a lot of going to forums, going to different websites and so forth to figure it out. So basically, Ready Up is just basically a master calendar for all esports and gaming events. So basically learning about tournaments, qualifiers, Path to Pro events. Obviously, we want to help create a bigger pipeline for people to get into esports. And so Ready Up is finding new ways to help people with communities to monetize their community about telling events that are coming up and to come and join and be a part of that. So the big message here with Ready Up is that we're just trying to help create a bigger pipeline for people to get into esports and become a part of the global esports ecosystem. And if you guys want to check it out, check out readyup.com. But we have a lot of things we're working on right now. We're still kind of in beta phase. But Ready Up is definitely something very close to my heart, and I'm very looking forward to helping people get into esports faster and easier and be a part of this growing industry.
Yeah, definitely. I can echo a lot of that. I'm also involved. Full disclosure.
Well, Throoper, he's the one that's always inputting all of our data right now. So
it's rough. It's rough. I'm looking forward to automating.
There's a lot of events out there, and it's really hard to find them. And that's where Throoper comes in and really helps us shine in a lot of ways. And our goal is obviously to get more Troopers.
Yeah, definitely. I want that too. The less that I have to do with that and more stuff, the more places I can focus my attention elsewhere, the better. But thank you so much for coming on today, dude. I really appreciate it, and I hope we'll have you back and we'll be able to talk some more Fortnite another time soon. But please go enjoy the Vegas game, and we'll catch up later.
Hey, thank you very much, guys. And hey, go practice, guys. You gotta practice. That's the only way, guys.
About practice?
It's the only way you're going to be number one. Number one at anything. You got to practice.
It's true.
All right, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much, Trooper.
No worries, man. Take care. Enjoy the game.
Thanks. See ya.
Later.
Bye.
All right, guys. That was Mr. Fatality himself. That was quite an honor. I work with John on a fairly regular basis, but still, it's really good to talk to him. And a lot of that stuff, actually, I hadn't really ever spoken to him about personally, so it was kind of cool even for me to get that story. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed doing it. I know we didn't kind of cover a lot of the stuff that we normally would cover, but he's got such an insane history, and it's just so much fun to talk to him and hear his stories that, I kind of just wanted to bring all that out because I thought that was way more entertaining. Fortnite's kind of been going through a bit of a lull period right now anyway. Season 10's wrapping up, not a whole lot to discuss. So hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll have him back on, and please, go give him a follow if for some reason you don't already. That's one of the godfathers of esports. And, check out Ready Up. We do some cool stuff. This week, we did have clips of the week. We don't really have, I don't know if we have time to show them all right now, but the winner of the clip of the week is Beanie, B-I-N-I. He had a really, really crazy clip where he got 100% of the vote. So look at that. Look at this. So essentially, he's going to pull out the shotgun and then use the heavy sniper on every single one of these kills. So he basically is just going to go through and use the sniper rifle as like a second pump, which, obviously very close range, but still really difficult to hit all those shots, especially because he didn't miss a single one. Like, this guy hit every single one of these that he did this. He would hit the shotgun shot, and then he would hit the heavy sniper shot. And it got him the win in this game. It was in a tournament gameplay. You can see there, code slugs if you want to give him your support. And boom, there it is. Like, just phenomenal aim, phenomenal accuracy, and really, really good job from him. So, that is our clip of the week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And remember, if you guys have your own clips, please send them to us, and we will potentially feature you on clip of the week where you can get seen by all of our audience, and we will potentially have some cool stuff coming up for clip of the season, etc. Or we'll pitch you against the other clip of the week winners, all that good stuff. So send us your clips. We always love watching some high-level Fortnite here on this show. But I think for this week, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed that discussion with Fatality. And I'll see you guys all next week for another episode of Tilted Talk.